Today with me I have Nichole from the Flamingo House. I'm very excited to have her. I met her last week at this conference, co-working conference in New York. It's the Juicy conference, a global co-working unconference in New York City. I was really excited to bring her online and talk to her. She's in Florida. I'm in Washington D.C. and this is how co-working magic happens. And without any further delay, I want to go over to Nichole. And Nichole, hello. Thank you for giving us the time. Can you share a little bit about yourself, your space, and how did you first get into co-working?
Well, first, it was a pleasure meeting you too at the Juicy conference. Got to give Juicy a plug, and thank you for following up. I mean, I came back with a stack of cards, and before I even got a chance to make my way through it, I got your message. So it's a pleasure, and excited that you guys decided to hear a little bit more about Flamingo House. So how it started was just like you were saying before, like most small businesses, came out of necessity. So I'm telecommuting, freelancing, or my business partner started her own company, was also working from home. And anyone who's done that before can understand the challenges that come with that. So whether that be scheduling conference calls around the mailman because the dog is barking, or always constantly finding things to get distracted by. For example, the fridge is right there, oh, I need to do laundry. So those distractions. And then after a while, sometimes you lose a little bit of creativity and having that kind of communication and networking community that comes with going to a traditional office space. So we were looking in the area. So Boca Raton is located in the southern end of Palm Beach County. And we found that there was a lot when we were researching co-working. There's a big gap between northern Broward and South Palm Beach. There's a lot in like the metropolitan cities, Miami, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale. But in Boca Raton, there really wasn't much space, of traditional co-working space. So my business partner and I, we said, we were either going to find a space ourselves and become members, or we decided to find it start one ourselves, and that's kind of how it came to be. We chose Boca Raton, and we really wanted to put it in the city because we had lived in other cities around the world, and where there was, a high density of people kind of doing the same things that we were. But when you tell them you're from Boca Raton, the first reaction is, oh, my grandparents live there, or isn't there a lot of golf courses there? And the answer is probably yes to both of those questions. But the truth of the matter is that there is a lot of young, small businesses, hungry, innovative, smart people that are, working here, living here. And so after living around, you forget that we live in a place where people vacation, so it's a luxury. But we also wanted to make sure that we accommodated the professional crowd as well. And so basically we needed it and we saw it. And I will say my business partner, her name is Amber Tollefson, and she was the one who first introduced me to co-working. I didn't even know what the word was or what it meant. And she kind of was saying, I think, wouldn't it be great if we had a co-working space in Boca, or, we could do this. And lo and behold, kind of conversations back and forth, and it finally came to be, and we're excited that this month, May, is our 2-year anniversary.
Wow,
so.
Great. Well, happy anniversary.
Well, thank you.
Cool. And so can you describe, a lot of us, I will tell you, I love to go to Miami. I'm usually there once a year. And, obviously, my family loves going there. It's our go-to place for vacations. However, Boca is, I think, one of the places that I have overlooked, and I apologize for doing that. I've been to Fort Lauderdale, I've been to Orlando. We have stayed in and around that area, but I think for some reason or the others, we have overlooked it. So, can you give us, you did touch on, it's a place where there are a lot of young innovators, entrepreneurs as well. What kind of things are happening in your neighborhood or in your city that you can share with us?
Not just in Boca Raton, but I think that there's this national trend that's contributing to the creative economy. So whether that be, and the term creative is something, we say that the Flamingo House is a creative co-working space. But that's something I personally struggled with. I come from a marketing background, but I never qualified myself as creative. My business partner, she is the creative type, but we, changing your mindset a little bit and saying that everyone is creative, and whether that be creating a business plan or creating a feeling or an environment, And so that's kind of how it came to be. In Boca Raton in particular, before we found co-working spaces, I was going to coffee shops every single day, and I would see the same faces, and they were all kind of hustling and doing, underground, kind of quietly doing their own thing. And then when you put it on a platform and you give them a space to showcase that, all of a sudden everyone, you see more and more of these, entrepreneurs coming out. And the statistic is what, by 2020, 50%, 45% of the workforce is going to be working independently, which is a staggering number. I thought I was by myself. I thought I was the only one working from home, and like I said, going out in the community and realizing that there's more and more like that. So from the business aspect, there's also, it's a rich community, not just retirement courses, retirement communities and golf courses. There's a lot of businesses here too, headquarters in the area. I mean, this was the original home to IBM back in the day, and has since moved. But that's kind of set the groundwork for the city, and they're really moving in that direction, trying to be an innovative, progressive city. And I think it's something that we're really proud of, and the reason why we chose to come back home. And I think a lot of people, millennials, I hate to even say the term, are doing the same. You realize when you're younger, you want nothing more than to get out of the city, and then you live in these other parts of the country, and then you realize what a blessing and how lucky it is to have that. So, to your point, everyone knows about Miami, but in this area, people wanted to find something in their backyard rather than having to drive 30, 45 minutes, an hour, when in fact they could have that, 5 minutes from their home. And so that's kind of how why we chose this location. We were looking for places. We were like, wouldn't it be great if we were like near like a train track and a brewery came up and something gritty, so lo and behold, we actually luckily found this space, and it's a brewery. Is 2 doors down, Prosperity Brewers, and it's on the train track, which is the bright line is right behind us. So it's pretty interesting because we read some there that Boca is known as the Pink City. Again, it's known, beautiful South Florida, prim and proper, but we wanted to really be on the industrial edge of the Pink City, and so that's kind of where we are, and we've set up base, and happy to see things are starting to sprawl out that way.
Fabulous. And it's always, I think I'm right when I say that you are the pioneer in your area who set up co-working and basically established it, or was there someone else before you?
Well, I'm not going to say myself. I will say, one, my business partner, Amber, to her testament, she's the really one that saw the vision. She had seen it in other locations and said, we could do this in Boca. And I'm more on the research, the business side, and I said, all right, well, before we do this, let's, figure out everything we can. So I did charts and graphs, and I researched, I visited every place, I ran the numbers, and I said, you're right, let's do this. And we did. There are a few office spaces in the area, but I think what those of us in the industry are challenged with is using the word co-working, the term co-working. And so we want to say that we're community-based co-working. We're one of the few. We're part of a group of others, a select few in the area that believe in the power of community, and that's what our space is tailored to. It's not about competition. Yes, there's executive office suites and more of the professional side, but we try to be the anti-corporate and focus on community and creativity and innovation. And so of those, I think that there's a select few, and we're proud to be among them in this area.
Fabulous. So now tell us more about your space. How is it? Is it a single floor, or is it multiple floors? How does it look like? I've not stepped inside your office or your space, so please kind of give us as much description as you can so that we understand how it is and how it flows, and how did you think about, what did you think about when you were designing it, things like that.
So I will say that we had the brilliant mind of our interior designer, a friend of ours, and he happened to be in the area, and he helped us really kind of make our space a style space. Everything was, strategically done, because if it was up to us, we would have put flamingos everywhere, and we would have been like couches and lounges, and he came in and was like, absolutely not. And so we really kind of pride ourselves in being a space that everyone and every one of our members can feel as though it's their own and present it as their office space rather than our space that they just happen to be, having a membership to. So when you talk about the layout itself, it is located in an industrial zoned area of Boca Raton, one of the few industrial areas left in Boca. And we've expanded twice, so it's a kind of a warehouse bay that we have outfitted with shared desk space, float desk space, private offices. And then we have an alley space in the back, and then connected to that, we have a studio, which is used for video photography, and then a conference room, which is what we call the brainstorm box. So all of our spaces are meant to be customizable, and they're meant to be used by whoever, organized and set up the way that the person who's using it at that time could benefit from. So the studio sometimes kind of converts into a lecture space. Our conference room sometimes turns into a networking where they do food and drink. Sometimes our main alley space turns into happy hour, and vice versa. We've done lecture panels of up to 50, 75 people. But that being said, we are a relatively small space. It's kind of a boutique space. So we don't see. I sometimes refer to the big players, the WeWorks of the world, as the Walmart of co-working, and we very much at the Flamingo House see ourselves as like the mom and pop boutique place down the street. And so I think that's what makes us a little unique and a little different. So yeah, the layout is a little diverse, and we always encourage people to take a look at our website. We do our best, but always if you're in the area, I'm happy to give tours and kind of give people kind of a sense and a feel of where we are.
So when you were opening up, what was the biggest challenge you ran into as you're building it out? Now, fine, it's one thing to have a vision. Your partner definitely had a very good vision, very forward-thinking, visionary person. Then you did the numbers, and then the third thing is your friend helped you out to design. However, I think after that and between opening, there was, I'm pretty sure, a lot of things happened. Give us how it was, how long it took, finding the space. Share with us some things.
I'm going to say the biggest challenge when opening, not a co-working space in particular, is the education component. What the heck is co-working? What are you trying to do? Friends and family, even people in the community were like, what do you want me to pay you for Wi-Fi? That's how it goes? So that was the biggest struggle. And so we really kind of stressed a lot of our marketing efforts into more of an awareness and education portion rather than, traditional blitz marketing campaign for when we were opening. Before we had opened, like I had mentioned, we were talking about other people and kind of hearing those that were feeling the same way that we were. Again, coffee shops, libraries, same familiar faces. And we kind of put out little feelers and said, we have this idea if you want to do it. So luckily we had a little bit of support before we even opened our doors. That was, so I would say educating people and getting into the space. And then again, it's just kind of the operational things you don't think about. It was literally days and nights. Starting a small business is a struggle. I mean, we learned as we go, and luckily we have a lot of experience in a lot of relative things. So again, my business partner and I, we come from a marketing and branding background, so that was the easy part. But then learning the day-to-day, again, the numbers and how are we going to run the operations, that was a learn as we go. It was trial by error. We said, we kind of tried to figure out the middle price point, what was right in the industry, and then made adjustments as you go. We weren't, stuck on one thing. We were luckily to, I heard a quote is like, you learn and then you fail, but fail fast, and then learn from it and move on. And that's something we really take to heart. Luckily, we haven't had too many hiccups along the way, and things have continued to move in the right direction. But yeah, the struggle was, the biggest one was the education component, what is co-working, and then, again, just kind of learning as we go and kind of making sure that everything was in place. But it was a two-man team. It was my business partner and I. Anything and everything you think you need to do that you don't think about when you have this dream of a vision, of vision, you're the one having to execute it there. So that sometimes that meant 15-hour days, that meant sleeping there. Sometimes it meant, figuring it out, working, nights and weekends nonstop. But it's something that I would never take back.
Well, great. Now, however, I'm sure if you would do it again. However, if you were to do it again, what would you change? Would there be anything that you would change now that you know what you know? Or what's your advice for someone who is thinking of opening a space or about to start opening their space or just going to sign on the dotted line? What advice do you give to them?
Okay, well, for co-working in particular, what we learned was the membership models and things, what people wanted. What we had assumed in the beginning was not actually true, and so we had to quickly adapt. And then during when we expanded, we added private offices. That's something that wasn't accounted for in the first round. But now that is the highest demand for spaces. The second thing is I would, working with a landlord or if you have the luxury of owning your own space, God bless you, congratulations. But the other one is, making sure you have it, continue to have a positive relationship with your landlord, and perhaps maybe setting up agreements ahead of time and putting those things before, because you bring something, you bring this community to life, and, once that lease is up, then things can change out the window. So kind of securing what you have in mind and then thinking, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line and kind of how that model works for you and be able to commit to it and jump in with both feet.
Great.
So those would be like the other two lessons learned, I would say, that you can... we're very fortunate to have both of those things work out for us right now. But, those are things that we perhaps didn't know right off the bat.
Okay, usually I don't like to ask this question. However, I am going to ask. Only because just to get an idea, which is because usually I don't like to ask, how large is your, what's the size of your co-working space? Because, I think co-working, and I want to justify this because co-working spaces are meant to deliver an impact, bring communities together, build communities, but at the same time, the only reason I'm asking you is because sometimes the size has a lot of things associated with it, which is such as like the complexity of opening the space, furniture, costs, such and such things. So that's why I'm going to ask you. I just wanted to give you the disclaimer is that I'm not a firm believer on sizes because I think you could be 1,000 square feet co-working space.
Size does matter. Just kidding. Come on, you opened that up. That was easy. Come on.
Okay, you got me. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just kidding. So no, completely transparent. We're around the 3,000 square foot. Like I said, we're a very small shop, and that's with expansion, but we've also built out this space. So we had depot units, we knocked down walls, we put up walls, we added some extra features that kind of make us a little different. So there's little variations and nooks of the square footage, and that's obviously changed with each time we've done an expansion. So I'll say that we're roughly around there. That's not an exact number, but that's where we are right now. But of course you have to take that into account when you're planning and things like that. So one thing I forgot to touch on is a lot of the materials and the work that we did was all locally sourced. So we did desks handmade by a local carpenter in Miami. We did a lot of the work ourselves. A lot of the decor we found from vintage shops, just shopping. And I'll say again, our interior designer and my business partner, they really have the creative eye and saw something that I couldn't see. I was head down in the numbers, and they were like head up in the 10 steps ahead of me on that front. So I really will commend them for that. It was incredible. And if you ever have the opportunity to come see our space, you can see what it is. What I mean when you walk in. So yes, furniture, all of those things that were taken into account. We tried to make a mistake. That was the other thing is we didn't really want to make it all hodgepodge and mismatched. We really wanted to make everything was consistent and across the board so that everyone came in and they knew that desk is the desk that they have and everybody else has the same desk. All the private offices are outfitted in the same way. And so kind of keeping them as uniform, as consistent as possible. Same thing with our membership supply, try not to deviate too far from, adding this feature for them and giving this to another, and then it gets too hard to kind of keep track and manage all of that. So And I will say for decor and for furniture and initial investments and things we did, we really were minimal, simple. Didn't want to go above and beyond. And then obviously has made, investments along the way on little things that we thought we would need.
Fabulous, thank you. So right now, now that the space has opened up, what's your day-to-day role looks like? I mean, you do have a partner, but where do you spend most of your time on a regular basis?
So that's part of the fun of being a business owner is that no single day is the same. And so we started this space so that we could run our separate businesses from within it. So we were still running and still are to this day maintaining our other businesses under the umbrella of Flamingo House. It gives us a platform to do those things. And so the first year, we've kind of we're all hands on deck and we're doing a lot for the operational, really of the micro tasks that need to be done. Now, as we approach our second year, we really have the opportunity to think on a macro level, and we're really fortunate enough to have a team of some badass staff that kind of help and work with us every day to help us execute some of the operational tasks so that we can then, my business partner and I can then maybe take a step back and start thinking, strategically on the macro big picture of what the Flamingo House looks like down the line as opposed to kind of being stuck. So again, it took us a long time to get to that point, but we're really fortunate to be able to be at that position now.
Fantastic. So what are some of the tools you use to manage your space? I mean, do you have any 5 tools you cannot live without? How's that?
Number one is Slack. We have a Slack channel for our staff. We have a Slack channel for our members. Everyone can talk and post notices. That's really helpful. Social media, again, we come from a marketing background, and so a lot of people have heard of our creative team, my business partner, again, really does a great job of sharing. We tell a good story of who we are and what our services are and what we do on a day-to-day basis through Instagram. We do pretty well on that. So again, social media platforms really are an integral part of our day-to-day operations. We do have a software for operations and member management. However, we are currently in the stage of looking to transition to a new software. So I don't want to give you a say one in particular. There's a few that we have our eye on and several that we met at Juicy that we're exploring right now. But now knowing again, back in the day, when we first started, there really was very few platforms and tools out there specifically for co-working, and people have now and companies have now started to build apps around what the need is, as opposed to just kind of we had to take what we could get. So that is something that we are in the market for. Open to suggestions if anyone wants to share any. Again, we have some, but the industry is relatively new in that and still evolving. And there's a lot of people that, from talking to a lot of practitioners and operators of co-working spaces, it's something that everyone struggles with across the board, and what works for us may not work for somebody else. So trying to find something that works, and maybe down the line I hear down the pipeline there's perhaps a perfect tool that's coming out that meets all of these things. That's the right price point. So I can't really say too definitively on one right now.
Okay, cool. Well, that's fine. Because I will tell you, I mean, I still run my space, or I don't do day-to-day operations anymore. However, we started off using Excel. I built all this Excel stuff, and I think our Google Sheets, and it still works. I mean, I think up to 100 members, it still works. I mean, it's a little bit of manual effort, but at that time, like you were mentioning, we did not have, I think we opened our space in 2014. There wasn't enough, tools at that point, and the only few and far that they were like very expensive, and we just didn't want to invest in that. But now we have a lot more options, even from Juicy. Great. Given that you are community focused, moving on, do you do events? How do you feel about events? What kind of events do you do? Tell us more.
Absolutely. So that's something that I think something that we do very well is event planning and execution, and that's something that we I forgot to mention, in addition to our space, we have a maker space, and we also, when we say we're tailoring to creatives, we also have some of our members we've found are not traditional 9-to-5ers that need to bring their desk and work on a laptop. Some people's work or profession involves getting messy. And so we have a maker space, and we have one of our members, which we call the founding flock, who's with us in the beginning, is an artist. So he comes in, so we have a space that's just for artists to get messy and do what they need to do and let their creativity fly. So that being said, we really wanted to inspire. We really kind of love the arts, and it's like a private passion of ours, me and my business partner. And so we really wanted to kind of create a community and foster that, the growing art scene here in South Florida. Again, not having to drive all the way to Miami, trying to bring it closer to home and make it more accessible for other audiences, perhaps younger, underrepresented communities. So that's kind of what we do. So we've started this monthly series. It's called Art in the Alley, because we have an alley space behind us. It's really taken off. We feature local artists, live painting, local vendors, food, all of that. And so it's really kind of in music, and it showcases our space, but it also gives these other small businesses that perhaps didn't have the opportunity or a platform to perhaps share or market what the great work that they're doing to the growing community. So, and it's what's really nice, and what we've seen, over time, is that you have senior citizens and you have children running around. So it's a really good mix, and both of them are kind of come together in support of the same thing. It's like in the community that they live in, and fostering and encouraging local artists and vendors to kind of do what they have to do. On the professional side, we've done, we work with, there's meetup groups and lectures and workshops. Also, we do member spotlights. So if perhaps a member has a new product or a new service that they're looking to launch, that they could share it with the community and get feedback from that. We've done that. And the other big one that we kind of have had a lot of good success with is International Women's Day. As my business partner and I, 2 women, 2 female founders in the community, there's a lot who are looking for mentorship or perhaps like looking for a space where they can come and feel comfortable and share ideas. And so we've done a panel discussion on International Women's Day, which is in March every year, and had a lot of really good feedback from that. And we hope to do more of those in the future as well.
Fantastic, fabulous. I mean, I guess being a woman led, or being 2 women founder, I mean, your city government must love you, right? You're not only like bringing communities together, at the same time, it's women who are championing the whole thing. I know our city where I live, it would have been amazing. Women first. So one question, I think you also do creative mornings, right? What kind of... I'm sorry?
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up. Creative mornings.
I mean, I remember seeing that on your website when I was doing, when I was looking at your website. What kind of... what has been your experience? I mean, is it too early, too late? I mean, what kind of audiences do you come, or what kind of people show up? What do they share? Can you share on that?
So I should say that the Creative Mornings, the chapter that we're part of is Creative Mornings Palm Beach, and we are lucky. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and it was something that before Coworking, I had never even known what Creative Mornings was. And for those of you who don't know, I really encourage you to check it out online. Creative Mornings is a morning lecture series for the creative community. And so when I heard about it, I was going to Miami or to the Fort Lauderdale chapter, and I said, man, wouldn't it be great if we had this like close by? So we started the application to bring a chapter to Boca Raton. And then word of mouth, we didn't exactly meet the criteria to do it for the city of Boca Raton itself. Ironically, there wasn't a lot, it was really tough. But then word of mouth, we found out 3 or 4 other people in Palm Beach County were kind of doing the same thing. And so we thought it would be better if we just pooled our resources. It's completely volunteer-based. We don't, it's a free event, and most I want to say, don't quote me on this, over 150 chapters in the world in over 80 different countries, and which is incredible, and it really kind of unifies forces, and it's a perfect platform for co-working spaces to be a part of it. So most of the places that they do host these creative mornings events around the world are in co-working spaces. So there's a good synergy between the 2 industries, or between the 2 events. So the Palm Beach chapter we're really excited to be a part of that. Again, we're all volunteer based, and all of us have taken different roles, and we luckily have been tasked with the speaker selection. So really kind of showcasing the amazing, talented stories and innovative things and businesses that are going on here in Palm Beach County. Again, trying to put us on the map of not just retirement communities, but really just a new generation of innovation and technology and business. Like I said, the creative economy is really kind of going, and we'd like to do our part to support the neighborhoods and the people that are in it as much as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, moving on to the next question is, right now, how are your members, or how are people finding out about your about the Flamingo House? I mean, do you do any outreach campaign, any awareness campaigns, things like that? What is working?
Yeah, so we've done, again, my business partner and I, we come from a marketing background, advertising, so she comes from video, so a lot of the videos that you've seen on our website are done by her and her company. They're beautifully done. Social media, we've gotten a lot of following from that. Our website, kind of boosting, a lot of people kind of just organically have seen it. Word of mouth has been good. And then recently, this event series, a lot of people have come to us for the events themselves, and then in turn say, wait, what is this? It's a co-working space? But they don't know, because I told you our space is customizable. So we really do adapt and change it quite often. So if they'll come for an event, then the tables are all moved and everything looks different, and then they'll come back the next day and say, wait, this is the same space. So it's really interesting. So a lot of the events have brought in people, word of mouth. We've also done certain campaigns when we hit our 1 year, and each time we've expanded or brought in a new service, we'll offer like a bonus, for example, 50% off, a referral program, anything like that. Those are really helpful. And then online listings have been pretty good. I will say social media obviously helps, but organic things and comments, testimony, people who have shared what they've done. I heard Yelp. A lot of people have said that they found us on Yelp, are boosting our SEO. Kind of those just easy traditional fixes for social media that have really helped.
Great. So now, I forgot to ask you this question. How did you meet your partner? Yes, business partner. Yes. Did you girls know each other, or was that just coincidence?
No, so that's funny you say that. So we've actually both grew up in Boca Raton, in the same city, in the same area, went to the same university. Our high schools were like competitors, and moved around. So after college, I floated around. I was in DC, she was in California, and then Connecticut, and then Miami, all over the place. And so for whatever reason, things brought us back to Boca Raton, our hometown. And so as I was saying is, I was telecommuting and, going to the same coffee shops and going to the same places. And so was she, and same networking events and same things. And then we became friends. And then that friendship grew. And then all of a sudden, the idea of co-working, and we're like, let's do this. Why not? And here we are.
Wow, a true co-working success story in the co-working space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is an example of how co-working brings people together, not just within the community, but even while building the community. Amazing. I'm glad I'm talking to you. This is really good.
Thank you.
So looking forward, what do you think holds what are the potential for Boca Raton and beyond? Now you are a veteran, or you have more experience in this industry. What do you foresee? If you are looking into give us some of your ideas or share your thoughts.
I will say in Palm Beach County in particular, I've seen a big growth in businesses relocating and starting here. A lot of growth, particularly in the creative industry, but also in tech. We have FAU, Tech Runway, Palm Beach Tech Association. There's a lot of support for that, and a lot of efforts to be done to really kind of put us on the map. So that's one. On Boca Raton in particular, what I hope, and I think that the Flamingo House is doing a good job of so far, is really kind of bringing arts and culture and community to the area. That was traditionally, it's known for something else and kind of redefining who we are as a community and as residents of this area. So we really believe, if you want something, you have to kind of be the champion of your own words, and that's kind of what we're doing. And so bringing live art and public art or art to public places is something that we're really passionate about. And you spoke a little bit more about the partnership with the government, with the local officials. We have had support, luckily, from a lot of the county commissioners. I'm sorry, not city council. And my business partner is actually fortunate to be on the Arts Advisory Board for Boca Raton, so we're really excited and to have a voice and to be able to provide a space for that and continue to see more of that coming to our area, because communities and cities that don't see or don't kind of accommodate those things, they're only moving backwards. And so in order to move our city into the right direction, we have to be the makers of change ourselves. We can't just expect somebody else to do it. And so we're, I'm really lucky and happy to be part of that with Boca.
Oh, thank you, Nichole. With that, actually, we're at the end of our interview or discussion. It was absolutely wonderful to talk to you. I've learned a little bit. I always do as I talk to founders around the world. There's always this little thing that's different in each city and each country. And every time I talk, I get a little bit wiser. So that's why I love what I do.
Yes, and that's why I was so glad I met you, because I literally had your card. Look, I wrote notes down to follow up with you afterwards. This is the one I kept in my pocket in the pile of cards that I had because, I loved what you were saying and one of the workshops that we were at, and I appreciate that. And I think the idea of co-working itself as an industry, as a trend, is about collaboration, and I think that the ones that are doing it well really kind of embrace that. It's all about collaboration rather than competition. And so as long as the more that you can share your resources and ideas, that's kind of how our tagline at the Flamingo House is. Flock then fly. We believe that it's called the Flamingo House, ironically, because you'll never see a flamingo by itself in nature. They always travel in a pack. And so we believe the same is true with people and ideas. Rather than working alone at home, you be part of a community and you share ideas, resources, time, and in turn, then individual businesses, things will take off and go in flight. So flock then fly is our tagline.
Right, and I love that tagline. And the other thing I will tell you is we are in the business of bringing people together to tell people hey, work together. And I think when we collaborate or we talk to each other, I think we're living what we are telling everyone. We're practicing and preaching at the same time. I mean, unfortunately, I will tell you at the same time, there are some spaces who are I'm pretty sure you know who we are talking about, who don't like to, share. But, hey.
And that's something, it's a learned skill. I mean, I myself, again, I come from the business background, and in my mind, I was always like, they're doing this, and we just did that, and why did they take that, and how do and again, I really had to change my mindset and to embrace it. And that's something, it's a challenge coming from the world of just looking only at Excel sheets. And it's really hard to kind of do that until you try and put it out there, and good things really do come back, embracing that idea of collaboration. And, I will say that, imitation is what did they say? The best, sincerest form of flattery, which again is true. I used to get worked up about it. And my business partner would always tell me, why? It took us 2-3 years to get where we are, and we're finally doing, in the right direction. So let them try, and the more that we embrace it, the more positive feedback that we're getting from our members and from our community. So must be working.
Well, thank you. And if there is anything I can do or anything that you have, any questions, anytime, please feel free to reach out. Now that we are connected over email. And obviously, hopefully, I will come and visit you because, as I mentioned, I do come to Miami once a year. So we haven't gone to Miami this year, so it's still coming up. Usually, we go around July timeframe. So when I do,
right out of summer, really good choice.
Yeah, I love it. The other thing is I like to go to places during off season just because it's less crowded. I don't like to wait in line. I don't like to wait for restaurants. So that's why I pick always the odd time.
Well, ironically, I might be going to DC in later this month too, so I'll let you know if I do make it out there.
Please do. Nice talking to you. Have a good afternoon and talk to you soon again.
All right, take care.